a lot of projects now where we discuss, right, here's the culture, here's the new structure, here's the new processes. They get 3 months in, 6 months in, even a year in, it's not quite going how they say it, and they just scrap it all up and start again. You know, how do they know they weren't just literally so close to cracking it? I've been at Liverpool over 8 years now. This January was our 17th window. Before that 3.5 years at Man City, and before that Blackburn, with a little spell of being at Norwich in between. So before that, manager very briefly, lower leagues, and player. So from Northern Ireland originally. So grew up in Coleraine, very fortunate with Portstewart, Castlerock and Roy Portrush within 5-6 miles of home. So surrounded by great scenery and great golf courses.
Fantastic. We're going to talk a little bit about cultural fit later, but obviously on top of how we know each other, we bonded over the fact we're about to move to Northern Ireland, and the kind of shared language of Tato and 15s was a new one to me, but I'm sure I'll pick that up when I'm over there.
Trebecks are important. You've got to get your knowledge of Trebecks right. Really important.
It's on the list. We had a really interesting chat last week, and we could have gone on for hours, and we were pulling on little threads about the parallels between the golf industry and the football industry. But as one of the first things we talked about was, you mentioned that people would hold up Liverpool as being one of the biggest football clubs in the world. You were talking about applying traditional business principles that into the way the football club was run. That might actually be quite reassuring for people in golf to hear, given that that's something we talk about a little bit. But how hard was it, you mentioned your 17th window, to shift that culture of maybe a more traditionally run football club to how you were looking to run your football operations?
But there's a lot of parallels, to be honest. Really, the key to that would be get experts in their field, you know, in the departments. So you see a lot of football clubs do it slightly differently, where they veer away from what's been successful on their business life to maybe getting carried away with the ego and the emotion and the sexiness of football. But we've sort of done it where, you know, our owners very much, you know, let's find experts, put them in position, give them support, have them aligned, you know, to a goal, final goal, and work towards that. But, you know, within that, you need good people, really good people, and then you can build the processes around it to really determine and decide what route you're going down, to be honest.
You mentioned, and again, this was, I say, music to my ears. It's not nice to hear people sort of struggling, but you mentioned phrases like, we've always done it this way, you can't sign that person, or is not a Liverpool style player. Huge echoes of golf governance that we might recognise in traditional golf clubs. How were you able to build confidence in what you knew you wanted, the vision you had, to drive that change?
Well, it's important that, you know, in general, that you sort of when you go in somewhere new, you know, what's the plan, what's the goal, what's the end goal, coming from the top down, and then really align it. But, you know, there's a lot of noise around either what's going on currently, what's gone on in the past, and you know, that's very relevant, those comments. You know, we've always done it that way, or that'll do, or, you know, he's not X, he's not Y, he's not. Well, to be honest, you know, we sort of have an idea of exactly how we want it done. The owners have an idea how they want it done, and the people that were put in to head up departments had a clear idea of what they wanted to do. So you align that up together, make sure your processes are in place, make sure you challenge, make sure you discuss, make sure you're disruptive in your thinking and you're challenging. But it comes from a position of honesty. It comes from knowledge. It comes from rationale. You know, it can't be just because I feel. It has to be based on this, and this. Here's what we've seen previously. You know, now we've been there, 17 windows. You can sort of, you know, we can relate to historically what's happened, how it's been. So you build up some credibility. So the biggest thing for us was really sticking together, small, tight group, tight team, and ignoring the noise, ignoring the external experts, just that, you know, noise is a really good way of describing it. Just basically sticking to what we can control, what we can do, what part can we play, and generally keep it aligned and keep together. So again, in terms of making decisions, not too many layers, not too many people. Let's make clear decisions, and when we have made a decision, it's all in. That is the decision we're going with. So there's a lot in there, but basically it was those key elements where small tight group, clear goals, support from above and around, supporting the guys that were feeding it up to us, and really just ensuring that we try to ignore the noise, because everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's got an opinion, but mostly about sport. So no one really knocks on the door of a um, London Stock Exchange company, raps on the door and goes, "Well, I think you should do it like this," or what about that's a great product. No, you got an opinion about football, got an opinion about golf, about rugby, all sports, and it's just really having that clear head that you know what you're doing and what you can contribute.
I was really struck by a sentence you used when we spoke last week about how when you joined, there was discussion about how we weren't all, you and the rest of your team weren't always going to agree. And actually, that wasn't sort of just an off the cuff comment. That was a demand on you and on everyone you were working with. That actually, that was kind of as I say, a demand that you weren't just going to toe the line at times. And you mentioned being all in on a decision, but how important is that culture of honesty in terms of being able to deliver high performance, but also give everything you can to the role?
It was a demand that we were really comfortable with, and one that we sort of embraced, and refreshing, that you have your say, you can have your say, but you can challenge. But as I said, sort of a couple of minutes ago, you have to be able to back that up. So it is demanded. You have to say your piece. Otherwise, we don't move forward. You're not serving any real purpose. And it's an old saying, leave your ego at the door, leave your bias at the door. Here's the discussion. Here's how it is, and we try and then work that around with all our own guys. If they've got an idea, they want to push something, or they want to discuss something, why don't we do it this way? That it's not just dismissed, it's discussed. And again, it's about great people.
You talked about actually how sometimes that can make you feel quite uncomfortable, because it's not always easy to disagree with someone, and particularly if you're looking up the chain and telling them that you think they're wrong. How do you get used to kind of feeling uncomfortable and actually thriving in that environment?
Well, they make you that you don't feel uncomfortable, so you have confidence to say what you need to say. Okay. And when you've said it and you've backed it up with rationale, and then obviously you build up credibility. As time goes on, you see a lot of projects now where we discuss, right, here's the culture, here's the new structure, here's the new processes. They get 3 months in, 6 months in, even a year in, it's not quite going how they say it, and they just scrap it all up and start again. How do they know they weren't just literally so close to cracking it? So it's something you have to stick with, persevere with, and to be honest, the individuals that you want are ready for it. So we were ready for it, as I say, the people around me, above me, demanded that, and there's no sort of ill feeling. Oh, don't put you down. It'll be not so sure. Or well, we'll leave that, or we'll come back to that, or don't see that working, or what, thought about that. It's a good idea. Let's do that, or and sort of then we filter it down. And I say we because there's no individual at all. It's you hear these people. I signed him. I saw him. Well, it's we. It has to be a team. There's no no question about it. It just and the communication down and around is vital. And there's no excuse now for limited communication with so many avenues. With WhatsApp, with email, with video calls, with Zoom, with Teams. No excuse. But obviously you have to just filter out what information goes to who. Because there are certain levels and restrictions and checks. But it's just trying to have an environment where it's okay to speak up. It's okay to question. You know, we have a data department, and you know, I would never have come into contact with those guys in normal work and life because they come from a totally different background.
Sure.
But we're able to share a beer. You know, we're able to share. I know Trey Becks. I've introduced them to 15s as well. So you know, again, it's I sort of go back to good people, an environment where it's okay to challenge, demanded to challenge, okay to speak and have an idea.
Leaving egos at the door is explicitly in our manifesto, so it's something that certainly chimes with us. So brilliant to hear you talking about it. You mentioned culture several times there. How do you balance between talent and cultural fit? How do you go about assessing whether someone's going to fit right into the organisation, either as a player, staff, whoever it is who's coming in?
Yeah, staff slightly easier. You know, conventional way. The player aspect, we've got tools that we use that are very specific to us, and you know, the manager in particular, you know, demands a certain character, a certain individual. So the staff situation is the same, you know. So we're very open. The team that we've got, you know, around us come from all different backgrounds. Some ex-players, some not. Some, you know, come from all different. You know, start off as analysts, some even journalists. Some work for sports companies. You know, some ex-players. So it's that mix of challenge and diversity and backgrounds and you know journeys. You know, all different types of journeys, and that sort of reflects into the type of players we have had. You know, so how many bumps in the road have they had? What's been their journey? How have they got there? What have they had to sacrifice? You know, so I think there's a lot of work that can be done on that. But it's, you know, if you get the right people, you've got a chance to start with.
And I guess players may be slightly different, but particularly around staff, presumably you might be willing to sacrifice some technical skills or particular abilities if they're the right person, because you can teach, train people, but they need to be that fit first and foremost.
Definitely, and we've got really good examples of that. But yeah, deficient maybe in some areas, but in the, you know, these key areas are outstanding, excellent, great lads, great people, share the same beliefs and ideas that we have in terms of conduct, in terms of, you know, how you operate, how you are as a person. You know, all different types of people, but that essentially is what we've looked for. And in particular, you know, Michael and Dave and ownership have been very good at growing people and giving them an opportunity to develop. And that's always something that, you know, even up to now, we've had some change in our structure, and people have been recognised, and rightly so, because, you know, again, it's very difficult where nowadays there's so many range of titles. You know, everyone has a long title or short title, or you know, but it's the job description. It's what you do, and it really, you know, it's what can you bring. And there's going to be blurred lines, you know. So it's not, you know, yes, your title is this, and you're in this role, but you know, if you've got people that aren't precious and not scared of sort of not stepping each other's toes, but crossing over, you know, sometimes there's a crossover. You got people in key leadership roles that aren't precious. You've got a real chance again, where no one's trying to, you know, build a little kingdom, step on each other's toes. There's none of that. And we just feel that, you know, that's the best way. And then you bring people along, develop them as you can, you know. So it's you want to see people progress. You want to see people improve. You know, you want to get some satisfaction when people are growing with you. You know, and if they want to move on to things, that's, you know, up to them. But it's great that you can help and develop them. I think that's important.
I was struck by something, and again, it was a throwaway line when we were talking last week, but you were talking about the importance of language, and there was a particular sentence you said about how if you give somebody a task and the way they respond tells you a lot about somebody, and whether it's just a yep, no worries, or a yep, I will do it, and I'll do it in this time frame. And that, just a tiny little thing, but it really stuck with me, is to how I might respond, but how you can read into something. How much does that tell you about somebody, and is that applicable whether it's your star centre forward through to a kind of junior analyst?
I think it tells you a lot. And sometimes it's maybe not their fault because they've been in an environment that you know um, has not made them, but has sort of they're not in a great place. So it's an easy thing. It's instead of will do, it can be a little bit more detailed than that. Okay, no problem. Is tomorrow okay? Is later on okay? It's just that it doesn't take long. It doesn't cost much, but it just adds to that feel of right. Okay, every detail matters. Everyone's on the front foot. Everyone's positive. Everyone's reacting correctly, and it's so difficult sometimes to get the tone right in emails, text messages, WhatsApp messages. But there are certain things that really should be non-negotiable. Simple please and thank yous, and okay, yep, I'm on that. Do you need me to do this? Do you need me to do that? So that's just our own standards. That's maybe helped with um, sort of how we've grown together and how we've developed individuals and where we've had some success. Just feel that it's important.
Find it fascinating, just the little things that can tell you so much about people. You talk about communication, and you mentioned WhatsApp a couple of times. Every time when we were talking, you kept reeling off all the WhatsApp groups you had, and it seems like you had one for just about every person and kind of group in the club. But if one of the greatest sporting operations in the world operates, I'm sure not solely on WhatsApp, but that seemed to be quite a core of your comms. Obviously, you've got a few time zones going on with the ownership and management, but are we overcomplicating how we think about communication when actually there's so many ways? You said there's no excuse, but sometimes those simple ways, the best ways to get messages to get around.
Yeah, I don't understand how people are overcomplicating it. It's simple. You keep in touch with people. So, we've got multiple groups, all serve different purposes, but we have a lot of people that work remotely, South America, all over Europe, and you need to be able to make them feel part of it. And sometimes it's generally it's we'll discuss players' situations on a daily basis or every few days or a couple times a week. But allowing for time differences, I think it's really nice if they're able to wake up. There's a discussion going on. They can a few questions waiting for them. Try and bring them up to speed. Try and involve them. Try and make them feel part of it. And it's really then a key way of just like having many meetings, I suppose, and then filtering that up. And then we've also got WhatsApp groups, for various levels, various groups. One of our WhatsApp groups, the icon is a tray of 15s, and it's called 15s. So it's a long story, but I was trying to explain to him one day in the canteen that 15s are markedly different than rocky roads and another level. So that's the type of discussion. And then within that WhatsApp group, there's quite some serious things discussed. But the fact that it's probably called 15s sort of tells you a lot about the group, a lot about the people within the club. From every department that football part that I work with.
With all those groups, on the flip side, how do you make sure you turn off when you've got those times and you've got all the people you want to keep in touch with? Do you have to make yourself put the phone down, or do you need to make sure you're always on and available?
So probably better if I tell you a story. So our window was really a real hectic window, and the lads were magnificent. Really, really stepped up. Real challenge. So sent them all an email the next morning just to tidy up from Dave and myself and say, right, okay, look, make sure you guys switch off. Just stay away from your laptop. Stay off. Don't because our guys sort of are also studying the media stories, keeping in touch with agents, clubs. So off that. And one of the guys went, yeah, but I can do it for sort of half a day, but then I get itchy because we all love it, don't we? I said, yeah, it's a good point. I said, so yeah, we do. It's not really a job. It's it's an interest. It's something that we've all got. And I was like, yeah, good point. And I said, but you have to, because you got a young family, so stay away. Don't contact me. But the next morning he was, did you hear this about this? Did you hear about that? So um, we've all learned that over time, that, it costs nothing just to reply quickly and say, look, I'm having an hour with the kids. Is it okay if I call you back, or is it okay if I do that? We haven't done enough of that, all of us individually, in the past, because we love, enjoy what you do, got a real passion for it. But it's important, because there's no excuse now. You could literally be in contact all day and every day. So you need some time away. You got iPads, laptops, phones. Is just no excuse. But you should just put everything away and try and clear your head. And also, clear your head, it allows you to then function, work better, work smarter. Again, there's a lot of Mickey taking about, I'll try and walk a lot whenever I'm traveling. Have a look around, see what there is to see, and I'll generally walk, and they're all laughing. Passes out walking again. He's on the phone. He's found this. He's seen that. So we suggest our lads they need to have time with families, a lot of young families, and clear your head. And ultimately, if you keep churning it the wheel, you'll burn out. You won't be able to think straight. You won't be able to think clearly, and that's what we need everyone to be able to do. It's amazing what a walk does. I'd like to say what a walk would do: 9 holes of golf and a wedge and a driver in your hand, but I better not say that.
I was about to ask if it was a euphemism for going to play golf instead. Leads on to talking about clarity of decision making. You mentioned noise earlier, and you're being bombarded with media, commentators. Everyone thinks they've got an opinion, particularly in your industry, and again that chimes with golf. How do you block out? Well, you mentioned how important it is to block out the noise, but how do you, when you know everyone's going to have opinion about what you're doing? It's no different to whether you're renovating a bunker or signing a new player. I'm sure that the kind of emotions run high. How do you block that out? And when you're bombarded with people telling you what to do, and knowing the subconscious of knowing everyone's got an opinion as much as anything.
Yeah, you don't search it out. That's for sure. You don't go and seek it. So you don't go trawling over the internet to find stories. You don't. So you just step away from it. And you also ask yourself, what am I going to be judged on? So am I going to be judged on having clarity of mind to be nailed on that subject, whether it be a player or whether it be structure, that I'm clear in my own head. Here's how I think it should look like. Here's my opinion on it. To those that matter, and the rest really, it's easier said than done. But it's just is noise. And we've generally tried to operate in that manner.
So there's a parallel to me there between, and I've had it in previous roles where there's been a temptation, and you talked about when you've signed players in the past, and you had a very firm set of principles that you stuck to, and that made the decision making, if not easy, but you were guided by that and you knew where you were going. And is there almost a temptation that kind of being transparent and wanting to show your working, as it were, to go, people might be a bit more understanding of, particularly in the media or fans and things like that, if they knew why you were doing what you were doing? There's some things you can't say, but sometimes you wish you could maybe open up a bit more to say, here's why we're doing it this way. And if you knew that, you would maybe be a bit more forgiving with where the direction we've taken.
There is that, certainly. I assume in golf, if you were to be a little bit open and say, look, let people have a look and see, here's what we're doing, here's how we're doing it. Sometimes it stops the gossip, it stops the imagination. Someone told me once that, if you don't open up and you don't speak, then people will make their mind up anyway and still say it, report it, write about it. So but ultimately, I assume what you're talking about is that you're in charge. You're going to be judged. So whatever sport it is, the guys are in the key roles are being judged and on taking it forward. So they have to do it how they believe should be done, and and be clear. Otherwise, if you start listening to everyone, you won't have your own clarity, but you find it hard to make a decision. So again, it's we know what we're doing, we know where we're going. If it works, great, been a success. If it doesn't, well, we've still done it that way. It wasn't deemed a success, but at least we were clear. At least we didn't get pulled in different directions. We didn't, deliberate on things that really weren't relevant. So, there's ultimately that charge that, look, you guys are driving this, you're leading this, so you should be entrusted and allowed to do that, really. And I understand why maybe people think, oh, you should open up and make people understand a little bit more. But ultimately, if the people that are paying your wages, or whether it be Gulf members, well, you've entrusted us to manage this and lead you through this. So it's a tricky one.
Well, thank you, Barry. As I said when we were talking earlier, there were so many threads that we were pulling on, and echoes and parallels. And I think to hear some of the really explicit things like we've always done it this way, and those cultural parallels, I think, is probably reassuring for some people to hear, that even in your world, that's barriers that you come up against. I think there's some really practical insights there that people can take away. And again, labouring on like the specifics about the how you answer a question, but even just little things like that, and hopefully some really useful little practical things that people can take away. And thank you very much for your insight. It's been great chatting. I'll be relying on you for my Northern Ireland cultural references once we're over there. But Trade Bake's the top of the list, and maybe we'll do a recipe corner with your next contribution together.
The food part I can definitely help with, and the guys at the club will vouch for me on that.
Thank you very much, Barry, and hopefully we can introduce you to the Gather community again soon.
Brilliant. It's been a pleasure, mate.